Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, as we're continuing to learn great leadership lessons from the life of David. Now we're going to get into the story that everybody knows, and that is the story of David killing Goliath. One of the fastest ways to promotion is find a giant and kill it. What's the giant problem that your company has, your boss has? Just say, I'll take that problem on, you defeat that problem, and you'll find that promotion quickly comes. But there are steps that are in the life of David that actually positioned him to actually face the giant, to overcome the giant. And many people want to skip these steps, and then they wonder why they're not killing giants. It's because they skipped some important steps. So we're going to learn what those steps are in these future podcasts. So 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 17, then Jesse said to his son David, now take for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain, these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. Carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news to them. In a previous episode, we talked about how David was overlooked, that his dad, his brothers didn't see much potential inside of David, but God saw what nobody else saw. And so David was looked over and he was left out, but God vindicated David. Samuel anointed David to be a future king. David was sent right back into the sheepfold. It didn't change the family's view of David. They still looked down on David. Oh, it's just David. He's the 8th. He's the youngest, because we still see this attitude inside of his father. Hey, Dave, I need you to be a messenger. I need you to be the Uber Eats today and take this food to your brothers. I find it interesting that there were 10 loaves and 10 cheeses. 10 is a number of testing inside of Scripture. There's 10 commandments. They test us. We're tested with the tithe, which is the 10th part of our income that belongs to God. So we see that this is a test. So how did David respond to the seemingly small, insignificant assignment that his dad gave him? This is the key to becoming a giant killer. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 20. So David rose early in the morning. I'm going to say that again. Early in the morning. He didn't hit the snooze button 5 or 6 times. Early in the morning, he left the sheep with the keeper, took the things, and went as Jesse had commanded. Number one of the greatest steps that everybody needs to be a giant killer. Number one, here it is. It's going to be deep. It's overwhelmingly profound. Brace yourself. If you're standing, sit down. It's going to be deep. Here we go. Show up. There you go. Deep Thoughts with Eric Lawson. Show up. You want to be a giant killer? Show up where you should be showing up. Ready when you show up. David was ready, and David showed up. Now, David could have got an attitude. Oh man, I'm just the delivery kid again, and you guys don't respect me, and this is below me. I'm better than this. What if David had gotten an attitude about this insignificant assignment that his dad had given him, and he just said, nah, I'm not going to do it. I don't feel like doing it today. Do you know what? He would have never seen the giant. He would have never gotten an opportunity to slay that giant and become famous and ultimately get promoted to become king of Israel, had he not simply shown up. There are many people missing opportunities for promotion because they just don't show up. Oh, they got excuses. It's beneath me. I'm better than this. I deserve better. Nobody appreciates me. Nobody recognizes me. Many people aren't showing up. Therefore, they're not killing giants. See, Goliath came out 2 times a day. What if David just would have slept in? I'm going to wait an hour. It's interesting when you read all of 1 Samuel 17, what happens is David had only been there a few moments. Then Goliath came out. Then David goes, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? He gets fired up, and then he goes out and kills the giant. Had David been an hour late, he would have missed Goliath. He would have delivered the Uber Eats. He would have gotten a message, and he would have gone back, and he would have missed his window in history because he would have been late. So the second thing is this: show up and show up on time. Many people aren't getting the promotion that they desire or that they want because they don't show up and they don't show up on time. I want to point out something. It was an insignificant assignment by a boss who didn't appreciate him and value him that actually positioned him to become a giant killer. God used somebody who may have not been the greatest leader to actually give him an assignment that seemed beneath him that actually in disguise was an opportunity for greatness. What opportunities are you missing because it's beneath you? It's not fun. It's not exciting. I got more talent than this. My degree says I'm more valuable than this. Many people are missing opportunities because they don't show up and they don't show up on time. Now, if you struggle with being the person who shows up and shows up on time, then what can you do to simply go, how can I be better at showing up and showing up on time? So how do I make adjustments to become better and more punctual with my time? Just a couple little thoughts is this. When you understand that showing up late doesn't just hurt you and potentially cause you to miss opportunities, but it's impacting the people around you when you show up late. Think about it. If David would have missed this opportunity because he showed up late or didn't show up at all, Israel might have had to go to battle and face that giant and the Philistine army on their own, and how many people would have died, how much loss would have been encountered had David not shown up and taken care of this. See, when you don't show up and you aren't showing up on time, it's costing your company. It's costing the time of the people around you. There's a cost. People are suffering some type of loss. See, I think of it in these terms, that if I'm going to be late for a meeting and I have 5 staff members waiting on me, and let's say I'm 10 minutes late, I've just wasted 50 minutes of people's time. Time is life. When you're out of time, you're out of life. So when I waste somebody else's time, I actually just wasted part of their life. Well, you wouldn't kill somebody, but we do it all the time by killing people's life, by killing time, by not showing up prepared and not showing up on time. So respect people's time. Respect your time because it's your life. Respect other people's time because it's their life. And think about it from a resource point of view. When you show up late for that meeting and you have several colleagues waiting on you to log into that Zoom call, you're not only wasting their life, but you're also wasting company money and resources because they're paid to be there. So they're sitting there and your boss and your company is paying them for their time to be there. So if you were just to add up, I was 10 minutes late, there were 5 people waiting on me, how much money did that cost your company? Well, if you're squandering company money or stealing company money because you're habitually late, why should you get a promotion? Why should you get a raise? Why should they pay you more money when you're costing the company money? Don't just show up on time, show up early. You be 5 minutes ready for that. You show up 5 minutes in the Zoom call and you're there and you're ready to go. Show up on time. Another thing is this, it's just simply go, okay, if I habitually struggle with being on time, then what adjustments do I need to make to just get better with my time? It usually really just comes down to this. You got a good heart. Your attitude's right. It's just you struggle with punctuality. So just ask, what can I do to get an earlier start? Maybe it's preparing everything you need the night before so you aren't rushed in the morning. Maybe it's preparing your lunch the day before. Maybe it's ironing your clothes the day before. Maybe it's going through your phone the day before and setting a bunch of alarms that alert you 10, 15 minutes before every meeting that you need to be at so you allowed margin so that you were on time. You want to be a giant killer? I believe God created you to be a giant killer. But step number 1, show up and show up on time. Look forward to seeing you next week as we get some practical steps from the life of David that continue to move us closer to becoming a giant killer. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out